Strikingly enough, I was sitting with a colleague and I talked about it, and she said to me, "Oh, I know what you're going to write." I said, "How can you know that?" Well, she knew me well enough. She said, "You're going to write about the fact that people are good, could do be doing much, or really only have control over their own behavior and to some degree over their thinking, and do not have control over other people." Largely, what I'm trying to do with it is encourage people to, first of all, enjoy the power they have. Most people have more power over themselves than they realize, but also highlight what are some of the struggles that you're not going to win.
Hi, I'm Laura Dart, and I'm the Executive Director with the British Columbia Psychological Association. Today, we're really excited to chat with Dr. Wolfgang Linden. He holds a PhD in clinical psychology from McGill University. He is a professor emeritus at the University of British Columbia and has conducted experimental and clinical studies into mechanisms of disease, clinical trials, and systemic reviews in the reduction of health risk behaviors, treatment of hypertension, psychosocial cardiac rehabilitation, and psychological factors in cancer care. He's written over 170 peer-reviewed articles and 7 books. Dr. Linden previously served as president of BCPA and also the Canadian Psychological Association. Welcome, Wolfgang, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Welcome to you, and thank you kindly for the introduction and the very fact that you take an interest in me.
Okay, so we'll jump right into it. You've had an impressive career as a researcher and clinician. What initially drew you to the field of psychology and specifically to clinical psychology?
I don't have much of a clear answer on this because there is absolutely nobody in my family or social background who was a psychologist. And if you look at things like high school grades, I had my best grades in math and geography, which does not lead you straight to psychology. So the closest thing I can think of is that I was arguing with my dad about graphology, because he used to think that he could read people's personality out of looking at their handwriting.
Oh,
And I agreed with him a tiny little bit, that somebody who's got a signature like Trump that takes a whole page probably has got an ego issue. And the itty bitty little ones might be a bit neurotic or something. But that's kind of what left off for me. So maybe I figured I'll have to do better than that and dig into this kind of topics seriously rather than just make pronouncements.
what inspired your focus on the intersection of psychology and physical health?
I tossed for quite a while between medicine and psychology, and I looked around among people studying medicine as well. And I mean, as much as I would enjoy the prestige and income that goes with medicine, they had to learn an awful lot of stuff by heart, and we're not really allowed to do their own thinking. And I just had to buck that one. I wanted to go somewhere where it was, challenge my own ideas and where it was okay not to have perfect answers to everything. So that's how I slipped over more to the psychology side.
You have a new book.
I do.
Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about it and what inspired you to write it?
Well, this could be a long story, but I thought about it probably at least 10 years ago for the first time. And strikingly enough, I was sitting with a colleague and I talked about it, and she said to me, "Oh, I know what you're going to write." I said, "How can you know that?" Well, she knew me well enough. She said, "You're going to write about the fact that people are good, could do be doing much, or really only have control over their own behavior and to some degree over their thinking, and do not have control over other people." And she's dead right. That is exactly what I wanted to do. And then I wrote a proposal and I sent it to an agent who I located through various complicated channels. Um, and he said, "Oh, yeah, yeah, just, flesh out the proposal in great detail and send it to me." And then I got busy with other stuff because I was still full-time faculty and I didn't have time to write this thing. But then I retired officially 7 years ago now. So then I did have the time and I went back at it. So the beauty of it is that as an academic, and I'm sure you can relate to it, you are constantly told to write simple, short, two or three ideas. Don't give a talk with six take-home messages. Nobody remembers six take-home messages, or information on slides, basic rules, no more than one slide per minute, and not too much text. At least it's all for good reason. So you're used to this chopping up approach of things, but it's never really worked that way in my brain. I see connections between everything. I turn on the TV and I listen to the news and I can connect this to this person's personality disorder and this person uh, having empathy with victims because there's a personal experience. And all this stuff just constantly happens in my brain. And I see the strings, and students have told me that, I go on tangents. And first time around, I read this and I heard it more than once. So it had to mean something. I said, "Oh, this is insulting." I know, not intentions. I have a discipline. But what it is that I see these connections and I tell people about them. Say the same problem is relevant for traffic regulation or for drug consumption and for how elections are handled. If you understand this psychological principle, you can apply it in all these domains. And you don't normally get to tell these stories because you have these chopped up little bits and pieces that you're supposed to offer. So I wanted to put this into one piece, and that's where it is. And so all those ideas are in there, and largely what I'm trying to do with it is encourage people to, first of all, enjoy the power they have. Most people have more power over themselves than they realize, but also highlight what are some of the struggles that you're not going to win. So invest a little bit of time and effort, but know when to walk away.
And so this is a book for the public, right? Not for
This,
psychologists.
this is popular psychology. Yeah. I mean, I've had
And
psychologists read it who said, "Oh, I still learned a few new things." It's not as if it was that low level. But anybody who has an interest in psychology and is, you know, is willing to do a bit of introspection would be a suitable reader.